The date is Friday, May 7. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. In the past week, nearly 40% of all global COVID-19 deaths took place in the Americas, and hospitalizations and deaths of younger people are surging as the COVID-19 pandemic accelerates across the Americas. Director of the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, Dr. Carissa Etienne, shared the news during PAHO's weekly virtual press brief on Wednesday. She's urging countries to prepare for surging hospital demand. Her warning follows Jamaica's Prime Minister Holness' announcement of continued island-wide curfews to prevent such a surge. Dr. Etienne says since the start of the pandemic, the elderly population accounted for most of the hospitalizations, critical illnesses and deaths related to COVID-19. But that has changed in the last few weeks.
But look around the intensive care units now across our region, and you will see that they are filled not only with elderly patients, but also with younger people. Over the last few months, hospitalization rates among those under 39 years increased by more than 70% in Chile. In Brazil, the highest jumps in hospitalizations have been among people in their 40s. In some areas of the United States, more people in their 20s are now being hospitalized for COVID-19 than people in their 70s. Adults of all ages, including young people, are becoming seriously ill, and many of them are dying.
The PAHO boss says since healthy young people are more likely to survive, they may remain in hospital for weeks. So countries must prepare for surging hospital demand.
If infections continue to rise at this rate, we expect that over the next 3 months, countries across our region will need to maintain and even increase their ICU bed capacity further. Health workers also need support after operating in a crisis mode for so long. Where gaps exist, countries need to hire and train more and more specialized health personnel to ensure that every patient is receiving the high quality of care that they deserve.
She is urging countries to continue public health measures, noting that COVID-19 vaccines are not short-term solutions.
We must all recommit to a comprehensive response that is grounded in prevention and maintaining health care for COVID-19 and other conditions. Just as it was last year, our common goal should be to bring down this epidemic curve. We know what it takes to get there. Social distancing, the wearing of masks, avoiding gatherings in closed spaces are the key to reduce transmission, especially as the dangerous variants of concern circulate.
Authorities in Jamaica are bracing for a third wave of the pandemic. Just this week, Prime Minister Holness announced a 4-week extension of the island-wide curfew hours until June 2.
The curfew hours for weekdays, Monday to Friday, will remain at 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. And they will end, of course, on the 3rd of June at 5 a.m. The curfew hours for the weekend will be modified for the next 4 weekends. The curfew will now begin on 6 p.m. on Saturday and at 2 p.m. on Sunday, and end, of course, at 5 a.m. the following day. For Labor Day, Madam Speaker, which is celebrated on the 24th of May, but the official date would have been the 23rd, but because the 23rd is a Sunday, the Labor Day would be celebrated on the day following. So on Monday, the 24th of May, 2021, there will be an all-day curfew. So that will be a no-movement day. Therefore, On Sunday, May 23rd, the curfew will begin at 2 p.m. and it will go right through Monday and end at 5 a.m. on Tuesday, the 25th of May.
The curfews are a part of measures implemented under the Disaster Risk Management Act aimed at curtailing the spread of the coronavirus, COVID-19. There will be no National Labor Day projects this year, and Jamaicans are being urged to labor at home. That's the word from Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, Olivia Grange. She gave a statement on the matter in Parliament this week.
National Labor Day 2021 will be observed on Monday, May 24, under the theme, This Labor Day, Stay Home, Stay Safe and Clean Up Your Space. According to the Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, Olivia Grange, Cabinet has decided that in keeping with the restrictions, there will be no National Labor Day projects this year.
As you know, that the National Labor Day project is normally led by the Prime Minister and includes the participation of the Leader of the Opposition. Accordingly, the Prime Minister has already announced that the curfew, which commences at 2 p.m. on Sunday, May 23, will continue until Tuesday, May 25, as there will be an all-day lockdown on Labor Day, Monday, May 24. This means that in keeping with the theme, the public will be asked to stay home and clean up your space.
Minister Grange says Labor Day home-based activities will be focused on ridding homes of mosquito breeding sites so as to reduce the incidence of dengue fever. She cites there will also be a secondary focus.
A secondary focus of Labor Day will be the encouragement of Jamaicans to either start or restart their backyard gardens. In this regard, a special appeal is being made to members of Parliament and councillors to encourage their constituents to start a backyard garden at home if they do not have one.
Minister Grange says the relevant ministries and agencies have been asked to lend support to home-based Labor Day projects and to raise public awareness about their own initiatives. One such initiative is RADA's Backyard Garden Program.
The Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, in collaboration with the Rural Agricultural Development Authority, RADA, has recently renewed their Backyard Garden Program. This program seeks to assist 3,000 residents across the island to grow vegetables and herbs in small spaces in their backyards. The National Labor Day Secretariat will be collaborating with the Ministry of Agriculture and RADA to see how interested householders can be assisted with seedlings to establish their backyard gardens.
Another program is the National Tree Planting Initiative.
The Forestry Department, an agency of the Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment, and Climate Change, leads the activities under this initiative. The Labor Day Secretariat will seek to intensify this effort by encouraging interested members of the public to collect ornamental and timber seedlings at the Forestry Department's nursery and to plant the trees in their yards on Labor Day.
The National Tree Planting Initiative was launched by Prime Minister Holness in 2019 with the objective of planting 3 million trees in 3 years. It's designed to support national development in the areas of climate change and national reforestation efforts. Tying it to National Labor Day ensures that members of the society have a chance to get involved. Melvin Pennant, PBCJ News.
A new protected areas policy for Jamaica will shortly replace the 1997 policy to strengthen the island's more than 300 protected areas. Minister of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change, Pernell Charles Jr. says the new policy will provide a comprehensive framework for the management of protected areas.
It will include a watersheds management policy for Jamaica, Madam Speaker. And in the environmental legislative framework, we will be pursuing amendments to the Natural Resources Conservation Authority Act to address the issues relating to fines and offences, revocation of permits and licenses issued by the authority, contaminated lands and remediation, and the criteria for environmental impact assessments and performance bonds, among others.
He says his ministry will also be working on amendments to the Natural Resources Conservation Authority NRCA Act. According to Minister Charles, amendments will be made to fines and offences, revocation of permits and licenses issued by the authority.
In collaboration with our Forestry Department, we will also work on the amendment of the Forest Act and forest regulations to ensure that they are aligned with the tenets of the forest policy for Jamaica. Madam Speaker, as it relates to legislation, we will also be finalizing a process that was started many, many years ago to establish, once and for all, a legislative framework for the practice of meteorology in Jamaica.
Minister Pernell Charles Jr. shared the information while making his contribution to the sectoral debate inside Gordon House this week. On Thursday, 12 organizations and 53 individuals signed a press release entitled "When Nah Ease Up," demanding the resignation of Central Westmoreland Member of Parliament George Wright. Last month, Mr. Wright and a female, Tanisha Singh, were allegedly involved in a physical altercation, and both made independent reports of the altercation to the Anchovy Police and Ramble Police, respectively. The MP is now on leave of absence from Parliament and has been officially stripped of all duties by the Jamaica Labour Party. The release is encouraging Jamaicans to join the Thursday in Black island-wide one-day campaign being planned for May 13, 2021. This is a joint action by the Institute of Gender Development Studies, Regional Coordinating Office of the UWI, and the Jamaica Council of Churches in support of the elimination of gender-based violence. History was created recently when future energy source company Fesco became the first fuel distribution company to be listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. And it is also the first junior market listing since the start of the year 2021. Fesco Chairman Lyndon Trevor-Heaven spoke of Fesco's journey at the recent listing ceremony at the JSE.
This is indeed an immensely proud moment for the five of us, Trevor Barnes, Hugh Core, Aaron McGaw, Junior Williams, and myself, to realize a vision we had only 7 years ago. Fesco is a 100% proudly Jamaican-owned company. Its principles boasts over 120 cumulative years of experience in the gasoline retail trade. And today we proudly declare that we have surpassed all our targets the very day we started, and we continue to exceed expectations and growth projections, even in a reduced commercial activities during a pandemic.
JSE Managing Director Marlene Street Forrest highlighted some significant milestones of this listing.
The company's prospectus was published on March 24, 2021. The offer opened on March 31 and closed the following day due to oversubscription. We keep having this, don't it, Herbert? And that's excellent. So it's an encouragement for others. We are pleased that the company, during a period of pandemic and general market uncertainties, raised $400 million and now has a total of 4,495 shareholders. That's excellent.
Fesco's listing has now increased the total listed securities on all markets to 129. The number of companies listed on the junior market moves to 42. And the total number of companies listed on the JSE across all markets is 93. As of April 23, 2021, the market capitalization of the junior market amounted to $147.15 billion. The market capitalization of Fesco amounts to $2 billion. So for one reason or another, you have ended up with bad credit. This can hamper your plans to acquire a much-needed loan or get a mortgage. Before you throw your hands in the air, take a listen to financial coach Denise Williams. In today's business report, she talks to host Gabriel Thompson about credit repairing. Plus, we get our usual daily market updates.
In Thursday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index advanced by 15,143 points to close at over 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 93 stocks, of which 37 advanced, 36 declined, and 20 traded firm. The Junior Market Index advanced by 38 points to close at just over 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for 1834 Investments Limited, Barita Investments Limited, and Berger Paints Jamaica. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica, Blue Power Group, and Caribbean Producers Jamaica Limited. Trading firm were AMG Packaging and Paper Company, CAC 2000 9.5% preference shares, and Everything Fresh Limited. Sagicor Select Funds Limited Financial was the volume leader with 4.6 million units, followed by Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with 4.1 million units, and QWI Investments Limited with over 1 million units. In foreign exchange trading for Thursday, May 6, the US dollar sold for an average $152.68. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $126.14. The pound sterling traded for $214.17, and the euro sold for an average $184.65. Oil prices steadied on Friday and were set for a weekly gain against the backdrop of optimism over global economic recovery, though the COVID-19 crisis in India capped gains. Brent crude futures rose 1 cent to $67.12 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures eased by 2 cents to settle at $64.69 a barrel. Both Brent and WTI are on track for second consecutive weekly gains as easing restrictions on movement in the United States and Europe recover factory operations. Coronavirus vaccinations pave the way for a revival in fuel demand.
Credit repair and credit restoration saves families, saves businesses, and builds back a borrower's good name.
It's quite difficult to achieve financial success if you are burdened by debt. In this week's edition of Financially Focused, financial coach Denise Williams shares the story of a participant in her debt healing seminar. The participant, whose name has been changed to protect her identity, sold her house to stop the bank from sending bill collectors after her. Unfortunately, it was not enough.
But guess what? After she sold her house, it turned out that the money from the house sale wasn't enough to cover her total debt. Because why? There had been mistakes on how the interest was calculated by the bank and mistakes on how Andrine's account was handled. This meant that Andrine had to go through months of trying to convince the bank that she was not in error. Andrine felt, she shared at the seminar how overwhelmed she was with the volume of paperwork required to sort out her credit situation and save her house. So, what happened? Andrine ended up with no house, no ability to borrow again because her credit report was in the negative. Andrine's good name was tainted in the financial system. Remember, credit is a representation of your name. What does your name mean to the banks? Okay? Right now, Andrine's business is on the verge of closing, and she's living in a very small room in her daughter's house. And so, what I would really love for you to take out of this conversation is that credit repair saves your good name. Okay? In the debt healing seminar, it was clear, that the whole idea of credit restoration is new to the Caribbean. Okay, very new. It has been around for decades in other countries, but it's not fully understood by banking professionals. And neither did self-employed persons understand what credit restoration meant and how it could work in your favor. I just want to spend a few minutes talking about why credit is so important, because when you have credit, you're using someone else's money for your purchases. In addition, you're swearing to repay the money to the agency or institution that lent you the money. And so if you're applying for a loan, a credit card, hire purchase, you name it, it is normal and expected for there to be a background check on you. So people are checking on you, okay? And so they're going to look at your history, how you manage repayment. They're going to look at what risk you represent, and that's going to determine the loan terms. And what are loan terms? Really, bottom line, how long you get to repay and how much they charge you, okay? So a positive credit report, a positive assessment means that you have a good financial background, and this increases your chances of applying for low interest credit. That's what we need, people, low interest credit. There's plenty high interest out there for people with bad credit. I'm gonna say, a lot of people in this COVID period have used credit to keep afloat. And I think that's what's making this come to the fore and getting people to talk more about their credit situation. Want to be clear that you can get support. And I just want to share with you that every consumer is entitled to one copy of their credit report for free each year. You can go through on your own, sit down, go through the credit report and begin the investigation to, look at inaccuracies and errors. And where there is a poor credit history based on, you really not servicing your debt, you can work with the bank to get new payment terms, okay? And once you have established your stability and your willingness to pay, you can then improve, maybe in 2-3 years on your own, your credit situation. Of course, we advocate that you engage the services of a credit restoration professional or even try to become one yourself, because there's help, okay? Remember, credit is necessary in these modern times, and your good credit score is your good name. Do not allow the emotions of debt and the burdens of debt to hold you back.
Thanks, Denise. For more information on the development of your financial future, head on over to financiallyfocusedmedia.com or find Denise on YouTube at Financially Focused. And that's it for this extended edition of the Business Report Inside the News on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
In news from the region, the nation of Haiti has one of the lowest death rates from COVID-19 in the world, and scientists are baffled as to why. Many people have given up on masks, and those who do wear them don't always believe they work. In this one and only interview, Haiti's president talks about why his government hasn't administered a single vaccine and doesn't plan to.
This is on a Friday night in April in Cap Haitian. OCAP, as locals call the city, one of the country's largest and most attractive for young adults. They still greet each other by shaking hands, no social distancing, and restaurants that don't require facial coverings. It's a world we once knew before the coronavirus. I don't know of a single person who has corona, Jean-Louis Ritchie says. I am concerned about the virus, but I don't always have access to a mask. The security of the country, this man says, is more of a concern than the coronavirus.
On a Friday night here in Cap Haitian, one of the most popular areas, you would think that I'm the oddball for wearing a mask. No one here is wearing one. You would think COVID never touched this country.
Weeks into the pandemic, President Jovenel Moïse says, some decisions we made early. We decided to completely shut down the country for 4 months. But scientists say even that doesn't explain Haiti's stunningly low COVID-19 death rates. 263, and just over 13,000 confirmed cases to date, less than 2,000 hospitalizations, and more than 12,000 have recovered from COVID out of 11 million people for the entire pandemic, according to the Haitian government. By now, the worst predictions had Haiti in a second wave, like India, in the grips of a COVID crisis that's killing 100 people by the hour, and a weak healthcare system collapsing. Haiti's dramatically low COVID count and death rate may be a combination of the government's poor record keeping and not enough testing sites. But Moïse says there is a relationship Haitians have with nature that protects them from coronavirus, and a plant that produces certain tea called asosimo that's made with ginger root. I'm telling you what I've witnessed, he says, but scientifically, I cannot say.
The other one close to the border is...
The Moïse administration missed the first round of a nearly 1 million free AstraZeneca vaccinations months ago, but says even when his country accepts them, we cannot force people to get the shot. Meanwhile, on stops in small towns, the president, who is wearing a mask, is a magnet for big crowds, standing side by side, gathering with no protection from COVID. And so if the Haitian proverb is really true, that behind every mountain is another mountain, or behind every problem is another problem, then Haiti may not have been spared, after all, by the worst of the virus.
In sports, we go to cricket. Director of Cricket Jimmy Adams says players will not be ruled out of a general retainer contract simply because of one bad year of performance, contending the current system and criteria provide for fairness. Speaking after Cricket West Indies announced the new list for the year beginning July 1, Adams explained that in some scenarios a, quote, weighted average, end quote, was utilized over a 2-year period so as to compensate for a dramatic decline in performance by a player over the 1-year eligibility period. Chief Selector Roger Harper further explained the evaluation process. He says the first period, which is the immediate year, which is the evaluation period prior to awarding contracts, is what is primarily used to judge players. He also explains that if the player's stats do not meet the criteria, then they look at it over a 2-year period in an attempt to assist the player. Players Kyle Mayers, along with the emerging duo of Nkrumah Bonner and Joshua Da Silva, were all awarded red ball contracts for the first time, following their exploits in recent months. And that's the news. Thanks so much for making it PBCJ. Remember, we are the People's Station.